I popped open a production that I created over 13 years ago, and I reproduced that vocal just to show you how anyone can make their vocals 10 times better, even if it's your first attempt. There's two big problems that hold our vocals back time and time again. So first are the common mistakes that all beginners ignore and just make you sound junior, and I was all over this. And unfortunately, these are just really hard to recognize if no one's ever shown you. And secondly, your song could actually be really special, but you just don't know how to take your vocal up to that next level. But by pointing out to you the common mistakes that I made in this song and then showing you how to fix them, by the end of this video, you're gonna totally recognize these mistakes in your own songs, and you're gonna have the tools to go and fix them. Quickly though, who is Charles Klein, AKA me? I've been writing and producing music for years. You can go check out some of my music on Spotify, or even go check out some of it on my YouTube channel. This is one of my first productions, and looking back on it now, I realize these 5 mistakes just absolutely wreck it. But before I go and tell you the first mysterious error that's really hard to hear, I want to show it to you first. Maybe you can hear it. How much do you really love me? Why do you cry when I go? And how much do you really want to get to know me? Let's just take our time and take it slow. The problem here is key and confidence. In this song, I had yet to find the color of my voice, and so I'm just singing way too high, and ultimately I'm not singing confidently because of that. And it also doesn't give the listener a sense of security that the singer actually really knows what they're doing. Like, you ever been to a show or an open mic where the singer is just a bit nervous? Well, it makes you nervous too, the audience, right? Everyone's just a little embarrassed if the performer is embarrassed. The same thing goes with vocal recording. So it's really important that you sing in the right key so you're comfortable to sing with confidence. If you're new to singing, or maybe you're working with an artist who you don't really know their voice yet, then it's often a good idea to test different keys with them, or even in general, just to test different tones and colors of their voice even before you start recording. And what I mean by color is essentially like the tone of your voice, because everyone has a natural tone of, you know, how you will sing by default, but you can change that tone, right, with the shape of your mouth and also the emotion that you bring into your vocal too. So to prove it to you, I'm gonna re-record my vocal right now so you can hear the difference when I record my voice in the right key and color. When I'm recording a vocal, my energy is really focused on the performance of the vocal. I make sure I'm standing up, I'm relaxed, and I know my lyrics. And I get into the feeling of the song. This will have a huge impact on the end result. So now let's see what you think when the singer is more confident and in the right key. How much do you really love me? Why do you cry when I go? So now this brings us on to timing and tempo. And the timing and tempo is the feel of our music. It's basically how fast or slow the song is, and also how the instruments groove within that tempo. Slow tempo and sloppy timing can actually make people just skip the song, and we don't want that. Don't get me wrong though, there's always room for another slow love ballad song. Those are great. I love writing those, but just it's good to know that those style of songs are often a bit more challenging to keep the listener engaged because they're slow. In general, over the last 2 decades, songs have been getting faster and shorter. So we don't have to make decisions on our songs with this data, right? But it's always just good food for thought and to know how the general public is consuming music. So for this song, I'm gonna go back to the drawing board and take my vocal and try to find a tempo that is just a little bit more engaging to the listener. To do that, you can use something called Varispeed in Logic Pro, and most other DAWs will have something like that too. But if you're gonna change the tempo more than 2 to 3 BPM, which in my case, I think I will, then you're gonna wanna go re-record everything. If you're unsure on what tempo to choose, a great way to figure this out is just to leave it be for a few days. Listen back on fresh ears and you'll have the answer. When you're knee deep in a production, you lose objectivity. So what sometimes can happen is when you're working on a song, a slow tempo might sound really great, but objectively, it's just a little bit too slow. For instance, I haven't listened to this song in years, and listening back to it now, it kind of feels like it's moving slower than tectonic plates underground. So before I record the vocal in the new tempo, I want to mention timing. And timing is how your vocal sits within your beat or your tempo. Does it feel too rushed, or does it feel
slow and kind of drags.
Take a listen to this vocal and see how it makes you feel. Do you think it's too rushed or do you think it's too slow? Why do you cry when I go? And how much do you really want to get to know me? That was a trick question because in this vocal, it's kind of a bit delayed and a bit rushed in certain sections. So in general, as the producer and also as the singer, you want to make sure your vocal lines sit within the beat. Just like if you're a guitar player and you play guitar, you should be playing to a metronome sometimes, so you know that you're playing in time. The same thing goes with singing. So in order to fit this melody within the beat, we actually have to adjust the timing manually. So my cuts here are dramatic because I wasn't singing in time, and you don't want to have to do this many edits because it's important that you get the timing right at the source when you're recording. Here's what we have with the changes now. Now ask yourself, how does this one feel compared to the original?
How much do you really love me? Why do you cry when I go?
Keep in mind though, there's always room for songs that have loose vocals, especially in some type of genres too. But if we just look at the trends of popular music, vocal timing is really important, so it's something to consider. The next things are gonna blow this vocal out of the water, but there's one more issue that we have to address first, and it's the lyrics. The lyrics in this song, they're super elementary, and I can say that because it's my song. It's really important because the lyrics hold up the weight of your melody, and especially if your production is open and bare, then your lyrics and melody are just going to be way more prevalent. So if you have a great melody and a great lyric, then that's Cupid's perfect match. On the other hand, if you have a great melody but the lyric is just kind of full of cheesiness, then Cupid is just not too happy. Okay, so let's take a look at the next big problems, which are mic placement, dynamics, and gain. I know this one might sound simple, but don't ignore this one though, because it could totally wreck your production, and you kind of only have one shot to do it, kind of. So the biggest no-no right off the bat is I just didn't use a pop filter.
But nothing's ever perfect.
It's just really easy to fix. You just use a pop filter. So what about distance? How far or how close should you be from the mic? This one is really open for debate, and it's gonna depend on the style of your song. I think I personally missed an opportunity here to get more intimate with the vocal, so actually get closer to the mic. So I'm gonna do exactly that when I re-record the vocal again. Another really big thing to notice here is the vocal melody that I've chosen here isn't really too dynamic, so I'm not really worried about overpowering the mic. On the other hand, if your song is quite dynamic, meaning that you have really loud choruses and really soft verses, then you might consider breaking those sections up and doing different vocal takes so you can reset the gain. For example, listen to when I sing the word how much and notice how strong the signal is too.
And how much do you really want to get to know me?
This kind of stuff is gonna happen though, and you can't really control it. I guess one thing I could have done though is just tilt my head a little bit so that word doesn't overpower the mic as much. In a perfect world though, I would have used a compressor on the way in, which is exactly what I'm gonna do right now.
So for my new vocal, I'll use the TLM 103 mic going into the UAD console with a Neve 1073 preamp and a Teletronics compressor. When I recorded the first vocal, I went in dry into the Apogee 1 audio interface using the mic on the interface. Yeah, quite a cheap setup.
Listen how much of a difference this makes now when you have the right mic placement, the right dynamics, and the right gain set.
How much do you really love me? Why do you cry when I go?
There's still two problems we need to fix though, and the first one here is actually where most people think they need to start working on their vocal. But you can actually hear, right, the vocal we have is pretty great already because we've done a lot of pre-work. This is what it means by having a really great source. So this first problem has to do with effects. So without opening up Pandora's box of plugins, let's look at the fundamental effects of compression, EQ, and reverb. Adding these effects are really gonna add a lot of polish and sheen to your vocal. So on my original vocal here, I used a channel EQ, a high pass filter, a compressor, and an echo. Total beginner. I really had no idea what I was doing, but you know, that's okay, because honestly, sometimes when you're beginning to, especially in music production, and I still try to remember this today, it's good to be naive about some things because it allows you almost to focus less on the rules of things and just more on creativity and taste, because the more you learn about rules, just the more baggage you have. So let's first apply some EQ to our new vocal here, and we just have to ask ourselves, are there any frequencies in this vocal that we want to have removed? In a perfect world, if you recorded a great vocal within a great room with a great mic and a great recording engineer, sometimes you don't even need a lot of EQ. So now let's add some compression for presence. This is really gonna be the glue to your vocal. I do recommend getting some paid compressors when you're ready to make that switch. Like you've worked with the free ones enough that you kind of have an idea what a compressor does. Now for the sauce, let's add some reverb for space. Now with those 3 fundamental effects on it, let's listen to how it sounds.
And how much do you really want to get to know me? Let's just take our time and take it slow.
Now, there's always more sugar and spice that you can add to a vocal. You can essentially add any plugin you want to your vocal to get the desired result. Remember, try to think like there's no rules. So the final problem is this entire process of creating great vocals is gonna take you hours to do unless you learn some of the shortcuts in Logic Pro, which is why I've listed 100 of them right here that you can go and watch now, and it's just gonna make you much faster when you're recording vocals.